Welcome to the Center for Anti-Gravitational Studies. I'm Tim North, and we're working here on the chassis for the Hoverdrum. And we're getting ready for this show at MoMA on June 24th here in San Francisco, the Rebellissance Ball, which is a benefit for the contemporary extension for the museum. And they invited me to put together a new drum to come and play it for the benefit. And this is the chassis for the drum, and got a lot of different objects and things that'll be mounted to it. All the different elements of the drum kind of get attached to the chassis, and the plan this time to add like a kinetic element to the show is to build these spinning drum clusters, which I'm calling carousels, and they'll operate with quarter horsepower motors, which will be mounted to the chassis and come up, and there'll be a little chain and everything off the motor in the center here. And on this side of the installation and on this configuration here, we'll have another whole cluster of drums, probably at least four, probably maybe 6 on one side, 4 on the other. Depends on the size and how big I can actually make the carousel spin. But the idea is that it's going to be mounted flanking me here in the Hoverdrum. And the trick this time is going to be to operate the motors with these pedals mounted to the chassis here. And imagine these drums, all these clusters of drums spinning on motors at speeds that we hope to get it going pretty fast. So it should add a pretty great visual element to the show. We're also going to have some harps, some circular harps. One mounted here, some strings, piano wire going across. And I have some bigger harps here in the back. And we'll have springs and a whole bunch of wire. I've got different size bass wire and regular guitar strings and such. We're going to string those across and put piezo microphones on the bridge, and what that will do is it'll amplify all the internal vibrations of all the metal attached to the chassis here, and the springs stretching and the whole chassis creaking and everything will be the internal accompaniment to the drumming. And all of those sounds from the chassis and the springs and the harps all get routed through an onboard mixer and several spaces of digital signal processing, like delay lines, chorusing, pitch shifting. I'll have an onboard sampler where I can change the pitch of the sample, and adds a whole electronic element to the installation. We've also got our steel drum here, which I like to use a lot. It's designed to be played on both sides. It's a 24-inch marching drum shell, actually. It's Ludwig, and it's been on several Hoverdrum shows in the past. It likes to ride right here in this configuration, and the cool thing about it is that it's one of the only kick drums I've ever seen, the only kick drum I've ever seen, that actually gets played on both sides of the drum. Normally the drums, on a drum set, the beater just hits the head on one side. This one, in the way that it's mounted, can be played on both sides. And that creates an interesting dynamic for the steel shell. It gets quite a great pulsing dynamic and resonance because of it being played on both sides. And the way I do that is the kick drum pedal with a drive shaft gets mounted to the thing under here this way, and it gets connected to this chain, which will be cocked back, and this apparatus here gets the beater going like that. So it's mounted on there real tight, and I can slug it pretty good. I'm also going to have a contact mic on the drum as well that triggers a digital kick drum, and I'll be able to change the kick drum sound if I want to and tune it up and down. And the idea there is that we hybrid the digital sound with the acoustic sound that's happening in the room for like an optimum sonic impact. So that's another thing. That's part of the electronics set, and that's one of the things that'll be in my rack is a module which has several pre-recorded digital sounds that I can trigger live in sequence with the real drums. What we're doing in the back here, and I'll show you how we're mounting the hardware for the carousel drums, is I'm using the speed railing and that I've used all along for the Hoverdrum, and I recently found another source for it here in the city, which was great. The idea is that I decided to run the pipe all the way through the drum to the shell to the other side. The reason being is that these drums will be mounted on the carousel, and I don't want the centrifugal force to loosen this up and have it spin off the thing. If it was going, I was afraid if I just used the one side, it would be like not strong enough, not only for the weight of the drum shell, but also if it ever got loose. Probability is that the centrifugal force could pull it right off of the pipe. So I'm going to run it through, completely through to the other side, and it will key clamp there as well. And then these drums will be in a configuration similar to the one you're seeing here, across from one another, and then there'll be other tom-toms and found objects on either side of that. The other thing we're doing this time is I'm developing a system for my body weight to be mounted within the Hoverdrum chassis. And the reason is that I'm not going to have a suspend point at MOMA from above head like I normally do. So I used that in the past to carry my weight. This thing gets very radical to stand on, and the idea is that if my weight is being suspended, I'm free to drum, and I don't have to grab a hold of things all the time to keep from falling out of the Hoverdrum. So what I'm going to do this time is develop a system with a hoop around my waist that's attached to these points, and that's going to hopefully hold my body in place so I don't fall into the carousel drums. And also I'm hoping to still have freedom of movement. I'll have the electronics back here and the harp instrument, carousel, kick drum, another harp, and objects mounted here. I should still have freedom of movement, and that's the goal with this setup, is to mount my weight within the structure but still have it be versatile and free to move. So that's going to be a trick. These are the pedals here that will operate the carousels. The guys at the People Hater shop who are helping me with the motors on the carousels are developing a way to modify these pedals to operate the carousels on and off, and we also are hoping to develop a variable speed for one or both of the carousels. That way the carousels, not only will they be spinning independently of one another, but they could be spinning at separate speeds, one going fast, one going slow, or both going fast, whatever, to add a element of drama to the show. And that's going to be the real trick, is playing these spinning drums on the Hoverdrum this time, and that'll be sort of the visual apex of the show, as well as the human drama of actually trying to create an interesting solo with this thing. And that's always been the challenge with the Hoverdrum, and that's the fun part of it. So looking forward to the show at MOMA this time, and we're going to knock them dead. Okay, here we are in the electronic section of the studio for the Hoverdrum that we were just looking at downstairs. I'll probably have a couple of pieces of this kind of processing, digital delays and sampler units. This sampler has a pedal that I can operate with my feet, and is really useful not only for getting a sample, but I can put sound on sound with it. And I oftentimes run my springs and the other electronic or the other harp and metal instruments that are that I use my piezos on through that stuff. The other stuff will be like probably just about everything in this rack. The mixer right now is at a friend's, but the 1604 Mackie D5 for some drum sounds, reverb, delay, multi-effects, gating, and all that all gets mounted to the Hoverdrum.
This is going to get mounted somehow to the end of that pipe, and in this product here's the motor, and chain turns this top part around, so much part is just a bearing. So this cross turn spins. I'm going to have pipes attached to this cross, and that's where the drums are going to go. So this part will spin, and the drums will turn. Tim will stand in the middle and try to hit them as they go by.
Oh no, it's stuck in there.
It's always walked out.
Yeah. Great.
Right there, that red thing.
Tim wants one of the saws, right? I say let's start putting it together. Maybe instead of using this for now, just use the aluminum ones that you have.
Just use what we got.
Just start piecing it all together.
See where it looks right.
Yeah, and maybe do the parts that are going to hold the drums, get that in place, and put the big drum on, so we can see what kind of clearance we have for all the braces.
I think there's room. I think there's room to come up, bring 2 braces down.
Yeah,
Maybe
the thing is that we want to get some bracing up as high as possible so that thing doesn't wobble.
So yeah, see, we got plenty of clearance right there.
Oh yeah, good inch over here. We might just make this a little short.
Yeah, I wonder what they should. That's pretty close. It seems closer on this side. Maybe it's just because it's not.
This also lovely.
Now, do you think that's enough area underneath for bracing the centerpiece? Like from here, underneath this to that main pipe? Is that going to be enough?
I think that we can work with. I think what we should figure out is first of all where you want to be drumming, and secondly what kind of clearance we have.
Well, this is great. The height here looks good. I mean, I know we have a variable down here at the bottom.
I think it's a pretty good bracing.
These are the sticks I'm using for the spinner drums. And yeah, it's a little awkward. I can still have pretty good movement, but I think it's going to save my knuckles quite a bit during the show.
That's a really good idea.
I might miss every once in a while, go between bonds or whatever. This will totally protect my hand. Yeah, they're going to be spinning. And like I said, I still don't know exactly what patterns I'm going to be able to play on this thing yet because of the rotation of the drums and stuff.
Go through the patterns.
Oh yeah, we got the drums here. Got a quick switch. This is minimum speed here. And you can see the gear and stuff working. Total speed them up. They're independent.
So you can turn different speeds.
Yeah, I could have one just going slow and one going fast, or both going fast. Like this.
Okay.
The idea is that we're going to mic it in stereo to try to really enhance the effect for the PA system. I'm miking this direction, one here and here. And two miking systems. One for the acoustic sound for the PA, and then another one that comes through here, all processed. And the springs and everything too will come through here. We'll be pitch shifting them and adding some effects and such to them, and I can mix them live and blend them into the main house feed. So there'll be 2 miking systems, one going directly to the PA from the snake on stage, and then the other going through all of this stuff and processed, and then that signal gets blent in with the live. And that's how we're planning on mixing the show. Yeah, I'm gonna have contact microphones on this. I can show you in a minute. And all the sounds of the springs, the internal sounds and everything will be amplified. Pitch shifted and everything, and slowed way down and processed pretty heavily. This is like my accompaniment. It's kind of hard to hear right now since it's not mic'd up, but when it is, it sounds really great.